All right. Good day, everyone. My name is Regine Camacho, and I will be talking about the key principles of systems thinking. Okay. So, in this series on systems thinking, I will share the key insights on tools needed to develop and advance the systems mindset for dealing with complex problem solving and transitioning to the circular economy that we have now. So, my motivation for discussing this online is to help the ability of professionals to rapidly adopt the systems mindset for a positive impact. So, allow me to start off with the exploration of six key tips. All right. So, here are the principles of systems thinking. So, first we have interconnectedness, seconded by synthesis, followed by emergence. Then we also have feedback loops, causality, and systems mapping. All right. So, actually, there are way more than six, but I only picked the most important ones that you definitely need to know. And as we progress through the systems thinking series, I will expand on some of the other key terms that make up a system's mindset. Okay, so here is a visual representation of the six principles of systems thinking. But to deeply understand this one, let us discuss each one of them. All right, so let's start with interconnectedness. So, systems thinking requires a shift in mindset away from linear to circular. So, the fundamental principle of this shift is that everything is interconnected. So, a system thinker uses this mindset to entangle and work within the complexity of life on Earth. All right. So, essentially, everything is reliant upon something else for survival. Humans need food, air, and water to sustain our bodies. And trees also need carbon dioxide and sunlight to thrive, right? So everything needs something else. So it's often a complex array of other things to survive. Another example, like inanimate objects are also reliant on other things. A chair needs a tree to grow to provide its wood, and a cell phone needs electricity distribution to power it. So when we say everything is interconnected from a systems thinking perspective, we are defining the fundamental principle of life. So from this, we can shift the way we see the world from linear structured mechanical overview to a dynamic, chaotic, interconnected array of relationships and feedback loops. So, in the field of business, a company cannot stand without its employees, right? Who will work for them? Of course, also, employees cannot survive without the company that will give them their financial needs. So, it means it is interconnected to each other. That's the concept of interconnectedness. Next, we also have synthesis. So, the key concept of this principle is about understanding the whole and the parts at the same time. So, essentially, synthesis is the ability to see the interconnectedness. So, this is equally opposite to analysis because if you see analysis, it breaks down the parts. But here is opposite. Here is understanding the parts to realize the whole. So, yes, systems are dynamic and often complex. So, we need a more holistic approach to understand this phenomenon. And synthesis is the answer for that. Let's say, for example, in an educational institution, the teachers, the parents, the stakeholders, and of course, the students should know and play their parts and responsibilities to realize the common goal. That is to provide the opportunity for acquiring knowledge and skills that will enable people to develop their full potential and become successful members of society. So that is the idea of synthesis. Okay. Now let's move to the third one, which is all about emergence. From a systems perspective, we know that larger things emerge from smaller parts, right? Emergence is the natural outcome of things coming together. So, in the most abstract sense, emergence describes the universal concept of how life emerges from individual biological elements in diverse and unique ways. So, a simple example of emergence is a snowflake. I think you already know this one, right? So it forms out of environmental factors and biological elements. Excuse me. So when the temperature is right, freezing water particles form and beautiful fractal patterns around a single molecule of matter, and that is a snowflake, right? So conceptually, people often find emergence a bit tricky to get their head around. But when you get it, your brain starts to form emergent outcomes from disparate and often odd things you encounter in the world. So to thorough understand this one, take a look with the picture below, that one. Okay? So that is a simple visual representation of the concept of emergence, a life cycle of the butterfly, from egg to caterpillar to pupa, then become a beautiful butterfly, right? So, as what R. Buckminster Fuller said, there is nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it will be a butterfly. Okay. So, in business field, if we say emergence, that is the process of making your firm or company becoming known and popular to the people. So, that is the early days of brand development. So this stage is critical, yes, but it's challenging. So to do this one, you need to consider various elements like the bureaucracy, the organization, the customers, the partners, team members, and industry experts. So you need to make them interact with each other to make your business gradually become successful. Okay? So that is all about emergent. Okay. Next, let's move to feedback loops. So, since everything is interconnected, there are constant feedback loops and flows between elements of a system. So, we can observe, we can understand, and intervene in feedback loops once we understand their type and dynamics. So, if we say feedback loops, that's a process in which the outputs of a system are circled back and used as inputs. So in business, this refers to the process of using the customer or the employee feedback to create a better product or workplace. So feedback loops are very important. You know why? Because this will maintain stability of your business while adjusting to conditions that are best for its survival. So whether it is a positive or negative feedbacks. If it is positive, then that will increase the company's motivation to do more, right? But if it is negative, on the other hand, then the company should modify or change some parts of their services or products or do some creative marketing techniques to make it more appealing to the eyes of the people. All right. So that is all about feedback loops. Now let's move on to the next one, causality. So causality is a concept in system thinking. It is really about being able to decipher the way things influence each other in a system. So understanding causality leads to a deeper perspective on agency. So feedback loops, connections, and relationships, which are all fundamental parts of systems mapping. So the picture below shows the visual representation of causality. So there is an action, there are actions then lead to the results and then vice versa, right? So understanding feedback loops is about gaining perspective of causality, how one thing results in another thing in a dynamic and constantly evolving systems. Okay? So in causality, there are cause and effect. These are pretty common concepts in many professions and life in general, right? So parents try to teach this type of critical life lessons to their young ones. And I'm sure you can remember a recent time you were at the mercy of an impact from an unintentional action. But in this case, if we want to make an action, we should plan it properly. As much as possible, make a map or bulletin out from it just to make sure, right? So, especially when it comes to big decisions in our lives. So, if not, then we should accept the consequences of our bad actions. Okay? So, that's causality. Now, let's have the last one, which is all about systems mapping. So the fundamental principles and practices of systems mapping are universal. identify and map the elements of things within a system to understand how they are interconnected, related, and act in a complex system. And from here, unique insights and discoveries can be used to develop interventions, shifts, or policy decisions that will dramatically change the system in the most effective way. All right. So now talking about MAP, let's have the final principle, which is systems mapping. So how should we do it? So of course, we need to identify the goal, the initial aim. We need to gather the people representing the different perspectives and groups, gather the materials, brainstorm ideas, perspectives, and inclusive, make decision, what to include, what to exclude, connect the factors, and check, collect extra information. Write, or you can draw or plan at every stage, then be flexible. Okay? There are situations and circumstances where our first plan will not be done. So better to have plan B, right? Okay. So those are the 6 key principles of systems thinking. All right. So actually, in conclusion, this introduction to 6 key principles are critical building blocks for developing a detailed perspective of how the world works from a systems perspective and how will enhance your ability to think divergently and creatively for a positive impact. Okay? So what stands out to me as critical in order to make a positive impact is the ability to develop your own individual agency and actions. And to do that, you first have to wrap your head around the core concept. So, if you want to keep expanding your systems mindset, I will leave a quote for you by Albert Einstein saying, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we use when we created them. All right. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned something from me today. Again, thank you and have a great day.